Yemen is on the brink of famine. And again, I don't say that lightly. The more correct assessment is Yemen is on the brink of the worst, largest famine in decades. Decades. 90% of the food in Yemen is imported. Okay? It doesn't come through the UN or Save the Children or Doctors Without Borders or any of the relief agencies. It's just logistically impossible for them to replace the commercial traders. 90% of the food is imported. Okay? 80% of the population in Yemen is living in the Houthi areas. Okay? All the way in the west. Pompeo, Trump, in the last days before they're out of office, what do they go and do? They go and sanction the Houthi movement, or also known as Ansar Allah. Okay? What do you think that's going to do to the 80% of the Yemeni population that are living in Houthi areas? Because now, if you're a bank, if you're a banker, if you're a trader, if you're a supplier, if you go and trade now with Yemen, particularly the Houthi area, the United States is going to slap you with fines. They might even jail you. So you're going to be like, no, I'm not touching that. What do you think that's going to do when 90% of the food is imported? Where's the food going to come from? The aid agencies, the UN, the World Food Program, OCHA, Save the Children, Doctors Without Borders, the best they can do, man, they give vouchers, they give cash to the Yemenis to go and buy food, right? Again, you can't do anything with those vouchers and with the cash if there's no food, because now the sanctions have scared off all of the suppliers, the traders, the bankers. So everyone is calling on Biden to reverse this, okay? This is, sorry, the wrong window. I'm trying to pull up an article. And we'll get to Blinken in a second because he talks about this. But right. So this is from France 24. They say 22 aid groups working in Yemen urged U.S. President Joe Biden on Sunday to remove the war-torn country's Houthi rebels from a terror blacklist, saying it could put millions of lives at risk. Okay? So this includes Mercy Corps, Oxfam, Save the Children, and many of the groups that I just mentioned to you. The UN has called what's happening in Yemen the world's worst humanitarian disaster. And this is not just from now. This has been going on for years, since 2015. Okay, you got over 230,000 people killed. Most of the people that have been killed in Yemen did not die from bombs or bullets. They died from things that were absolutely preventable, from malnourishment, from famine, from diseases. Think about that for a second. Yes, those were caused by war, but there's still indirect causes. You understand? So the number of people that are already suffering is enormous. 2/3 of Yemenis don't have food. Access to clean water, same number. I mean, lack of healthcare. There's so much wrong. So for Trump and Pompeo to come here at the last minute and do this shit on top of it, I mean, this is evil. Evil. Antony Blinken, Biden's pick for Secretary of State, said at his confirmation hearing that he would immediately review the Trump administration's labeling of the insurgents. Okay, so let me play that clip for you.
Examining some of our relationships in the region that have become more complicated by their human rights records.
First, Senator, we need to be clear-eyed about the Houthis. They overthrew government in Yemen. They engaged in a path of aggression through the country. They directed aggression toward Saudi Arabia. They've committed atrocities and human rights abuses, and that is a fact. What's also a fact, though, is that the Saudi-led campaign in Yemen to push back against the Houthi aggression has contributed to what is, by most accounts, the worst humanitarian situation that we face anywhere in the world. And one aspect of that situation is that about 80% of the Yemeni population right now is in areas controlled by the Houthis. And whether we like it or not, we have to find ways to get assistance to them if we're going to do anything about addressing this situation. And so my concern, deep concern about the designation that was made is that, at least on its surface, it seems to achieve nothing particularly practical in advancing the efforts against the Houthis and to bring them back to the negotiating table, while making it even more difficult than it already is to provide humanitarian assistance to people who desperately need it. So I think we would propose to review that immediately to make sure that what we are doing is not impeding the provision of humanitarian assistance even under these difficult circumstances. I recognize that some have talked about carve-outs for American providers of humanitarian assistance. The problem there is that if the carve-outs don't apply to everyone around the world, it's not going to get the job done, because most of the humanitarian assistance provided to Yemen is not coming from the United States, it's coming from other countries. So I think we've got a very specific and concrete problem that we need to address very quickly if we're going to make sure we're doing everything we can to alleviate the suffering of people in Yemen.
Thank you for that answer. I need to move forward.
Now, here's the thing, man. Here's the problem. Even Mike Pompeo is saying, yeah, we're going to make exemptions. We're going to hand out licenses for aid agencies and those providing relief and humanitarian work. They didn't give them anything. So the sanctions were announced on the 10th, I believe, of January, and then they came into effect on the 19th. The aid agencies, the UN, you name it, all of these NGOs, were told nothing about how this is going to work until the day that the sanctions came into effect. I mean, what the fuck is that? What is that? And once again, I reiterate what I said before. Giving an exemption to, let's say, UNICEF or the World Food Program or OCHA or Save the Children, whatever. They're not the ones importing the food. It doesn't fucking help because they can't replace the commercial trade system. Do you understand? They're not the ones who need the exemptions. I mean, they do, of course, obviously, primarily, but it's not going to solve the food issue. God damn it. Those agencies were already operating in Yemen. Yes? If they were able to replace and adequately feed the Yemenis, 80% of the Yemeni population, which is under Houthi control areas, there wouldn't be food insecurity in Yemen to begin with. But again, this would still be, these new sanctions would still be horrible and still cause widespread suffering and famine. And I mean, again, I want to show you pictures so you understand how bad it is. But again, I don't know if YouTube lets me. But you should go on Google and look up photographs of children in Yemen. I mean, just look at that. And they want to make that even worse now. What the fuck is Biden doing? What is he waiting for? That's what I want to know. In any case, they say they've already launched a review. Okay, so this is from CNN. January 22nd, Biden administration launches review of Trump decision to designate Yemen's Houthis as an FTO, a foreign terrorist organization, which comes with sanctions. And hold on, let me zoom in so you can actually see that. My window's disappeared. There we go. Okay. So again, this is talking about Blinken, and they said they're going to do a review immediately. They're not telling us what the review is, however. They're not saying. And if you were listening carefully, just one thing before I go forward with this. If you're listening carefully to Blinken, he didn't say, we're going to withdraw complete total support for Saudi Arabia, for the Saudi-led coalition, which has been bombing Yemen with the UAE, with Qatar, and of course with American, British, Canadian, French, German bombs. He didn't say that, right? He said, we're going to consider removing military support, which is one of Biden's campaign promises. Okay, what about this? This is what you need to pay attention to. Sanctions are killing people. This is siege warfare. Do you understand? Look at how many children died in Iraq. You have Madeleine Albright saying, yes, it's worth the cost, killing 500,000 children with sanctions, not bombs. So and if you listen to the whole hearing, he's also asked about Saudi Arabia by other senators. And he reaffirms, yeah, this is an ally. We don't agree with them all the time, but we're going to keep supporting them. No, you need to fucking cut that shit completely. Not just withdraw military support and then maybe leave the sanctions. I find this astonishing how they need to review this as if the Trump administration didn't do their own assessments, as if they don't know what is going to happen. I mean, on principle alone, you should not be doing this. On principle alone. If I just told you all of these figures, these facts, which come from the United Nations, which come from OCHA, also part of the UN, which come from UNICEF, which come from the organizations on the ground in Yemen. We all know this. You think the United States doesn't know this? What the fuck are they waiting for? The State Department spokesperson said that they strongly believe that Ansar Allah, another name for the Houthis, needs to change its behavior, adding that it bears significant responsibility for the humanitarian catastrophe and insecurity in Yemen. At the same time, we must also ensure that we are not impeding the provision of humanitarian assistance. Again, Pompeo said, this is what I just told you. Pompeo said in a statement announcing the designation, the U.S. was planning to put in place measures to reduce their impact on certain humanitarian activity and imports into Yemen. We have expressed our readiness to work with relevant officials at the UN, with international and non-governmental organizations and other international donors to address these implications. However, humanitarian organizations and lawmakers express serious concerns that the measures would not be sufficient, and they're not. They are not telling you the full story. They're not giving you the full picture here, right? So they'll give out licenses, maybe, and exemptions to the UN, to Doctors Without Borders, but that's not fixing the problem. And they don't even talk about that in this article, that the commercial, the commerce and trade can't be taken over by the aid agencies. And that's not me saying that. I'm not saying that myself. This is from Mark Lovecock, okay? The general coordinator for relief in Yemen. So these are the people that are running the operations telling you this shit is not going to fly. It's horrible. It's really horrible. And of course, just look at what happened to Syria, for example. Look at the sanctions in Syria, right? I mean, you have the war to consider as well, equally in Yemen, but you have 10 years of war, foreign jihadists coming in, God knows how many countries, dozens of countries running bombing campaigns. And Syria is a country that could grow its own food, that was self-sufficient. Didn't need to rely on anyone. No need to import anything. I mean, of course, they're importing things, but when it comes to wheat, for example, Syria is an exporter of wheat. It had the surplus. You had a drought for years. But my point is, what I'm trying to get to here is if Syria has been reduced to breadlines now because of the war, because of sanctions, what the fuck do you think is going to happen to Yemen, which is already importing 90% of its food and is already, got 2/3 of its population food insecure? I mean, this is absurdly criminal. It's a genocide. And the fact that you have people saying, like, oh, well, Biden just got elected. Just give him some time, man. Give him some time. You have to be patient. The people in the squad, they just got elected. You have to be patient. I want you to go without food for 2 weeks and see if you like it. See how patient you are after 2 weeks with no clean water and no food. Never mind a couple of years, okay? I want to see how fucking patient you are. Why do people think that this is okay for Yemenis or Syrians or Iranians or Venezuelans to just wait? Who said that they have to wait and go hungry because you don't want to hold your politicians accountable? What the fuck is that? Like, listen to yourself. You sound like a fucking lunatic. You have zero empathy. People are starving. Can you last without food for 2 weeks or more? Would you accept that? Would you allow that? Why do you allow it to others? Why do you think it's okay? Why do you insulate politicians from criticism? Why do you give them time? There is no fucking time. And the same applies for healthcare. Why should someone who has diabetes go without insulin? They also have fucking time? Why should Joe Biden and other politicians be given time? They've been in government their whole fucking lives. If you got a job, are you allowed to do nothing on your first day of work? You would get fired immediately. So why is the man who gets the most important job in the country allowed to do nothing? This is bullshit. A review? No, you don't need a review. You need to reverse it. You go to Congress, you get it done. Once again, if Donald Trump, hypothetically, if he had sanctioned Israel, which he would never do, but if he had sanctioned Israel or the United Kingdom the day before he left office, Joe Biden would, that's the first fucking thing, executive order that he would sign, the first order of business in Congress that he would attend to is reversing that. So don't fucking sit there and tell me that, oh, there's time and you have to be patient. Go and fuck yourself.